At the heart of the opulent lobby of Beacon Bank's flagship branch, Jessica Keller, the branch manager, stood behind a marble counter, her tone dripping with a thinly veiled condescension. "I'm sorry, but we don't just hand out large sums of cash to anyone," she sneered, pushing the withdrawal slip back across to the woman. "Especially not amounts like this." The words fell from her lips, echoing through the lobby, as a circle of employees hovered in the background, eyes darting between the woman and each other. One whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Seriously? She doesn't even look like she has that kind of money." Laughter rippled through the group, and for a moment, everything seemed to slow down. The woman standing at the counter, her back straight and composed, was Angela Thompson, a CEO of one of the largest corporations in the country. But to the staff at Beacon Bank, Angela was nothing more than a black woman who clearly didn't belong in the same financial tier as their usual clientele. The mockery didn't faze Angela, but it stung deep, her dignity intact only by sheer force of will. They had no idea who they were dealing with. 20 years ago, Angela had started as a teller, working her way up through the ranks of Beacon Bank with an unyielding drive. From there, she moved through roles, each one mastered with precision, earning her MBA and eventually leading record-breaking quarters. Now, she stood at the pinnacle as the CEO of Beacon Bank. What the staff didn't know was at this moment, this glaring display of bias would be the catalyst for a dramatic shift not only in their careers but in the culture of the entire bank. This was no ordinary customer. Angela Thompson was about to show them what real power and dignity looked like. As the evening sun dipped behind the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the city of Glenwood, George Harris stood in front of the large windows in his office, looking down at the bustling streets below. The world seemed far too small for a man of his stature. At 45, George was at the peak of his career. He had built Harris Tech Solutions from a small startup in his garage to a multi-billion-dollar company that spanned across the nation. Yet, for all his success, something gnawed at him. The whispers from his board members and the hushed conversations at his high-end corporate gala felt like a distant hum of something more insidious. His mind wandered back to the phone call he had received that afternoon. His company's latest deal, the one he had worked tirelessly to secure, was being questioned. The rumor, like wildfire, had spread across the office corridors. "George can't handle a deal of this size. He's in over his head." It was clear. They saw him as just another self-made man who, despite his success, was still an outsider in their world. The slight tremor in his voice when he responded to the board had given them the ammunition they needed to plant that seed of doubt. But George wasn't the kind of man to let anything break his focus. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white, as the anger inside him simmered to a boil. He wasn't some inexperienced amateur. He wasn't a figurehead, someone propped up by luck. He had earned every ounce of his success. He had clawed his way to the top, and he'd be damned if a few jealous whispers would bring him down. Tonight, something inside him shifted. The very people who doubted him, those who saw him as a mere figure in their corporate chess game, were about to see a side of George Harris they'd never imagined. The city of Oakfield was buzzing that Saturday night. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow on the bustling streets below. A low hum of chatter filled the air as groups of friends and families strolled along the sidewalk, enjoying the cool breeze of late spring. But inside the high-rise of Oakfield Enterprises, there was a storm brewing. Inside the conference room, Brad Thompson, the 38-year-old CEO of Oakfield Enterprises, sat at the head of a long, polished oak table. His sleek, dark hair and sharp suit gave him an air of confidence, but underneath the polished exterior, anxiety churned. The company was about to launch a groundbreaking new product, something that would change the market forever. Or at least, that's what Brad had promised in all the meetings. The thing was, doubts had started to creep into his mind over the past few weeks. What if he'd oversold it? What if the product didn't live up to the hype? As his team filed into room, their eyes sharp with anticipation, Brad forced a smile. He greeted them with a practiced charm that had gotten him this far, but as he watched his head engineer, Sarah Collins, slide into the seat beside him, he couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling in his gut. Sarah had been with Oakfield Enterprises for almost 10 years, and over the years, she had become more than just a brilliant engineer. She had become the backbone of their success. But recently, Brad had sensed something was off. She'd been quieter, her eyes more distant. There were rumors swirling about her taking a job with a rival tech firm in Silicon Valley, and it was clear she wasn't entirely invested in the project anymore. "So, Sarah," Brad said, his voice a little too light, "ready to show everyone how great this product is?" Her eyes met his for a brief moment, and for the first time that evening, Brad saw the faintest flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. It was like a game of poker, and Sarah was no longer playing with a full deck. The room fell silent as Sarah stood, ready to unveil what was meant to be Oakfield's shining achievement. Brad's stomach tightened. Tonight, things were about to get very interesting. It was a cool Thursday evening in the quiet town of Brooksville, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets were hard to keep. The local diner was buzzing with activity, as people sipped coffee and chatted about everything from the weather to the upcoming high school football game. But in the back booth, there was a different kind of conversation happening, one that was about to change the course of business for two childhood friends. Anna Roberts, a 32-year-old ambitious entrepreneur, sat across from Jake Matthews, a laid-back 34-year-old who had always preferred the slower pace of small-town life. Anna had come to Brooksville to discuss an opportunity that could transform both of their futures, but as the words left her mouth, she couldn't help but notice Jake's reaction. "Jake, you know how much I've been working on a new app project, right?" Anna asked, her fingers nervously stirring her coffee. Her bright blue eyes held a determined spark, but beneath the surface, she was anxious. The stakes had never been higher. Jake took a slow sip from his mug, his cowboy boots tapping against the floor. "I've heard about it," he said, the same calm tone he always used, though his brow furrowed slightly. "But are you sure about this? You've been putting in a lot of hours, Anna. You know how things can go wrong in this industry. It's not like running a bakery in town." Anna smiled wryly. I know, but this app could change everything for small businesses, Jake. Think about it. Local shops, local farms, all using the platform to sell directly to customers. It's the future of small-town commerce." Jake leaned back in his seat, his eyes scanning the room as if looking for something, anything, to distract him from the weight of her words. He wasn't one to rush into things, and the idea of plunging into the tech world felt a little too big for his comfort zone. "What's your plan, then?" he asked, a half smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. Anna couldn't tell if he was serious or just toying with her. Either way, she knew she had to push forward, and fast. "We're meeting with investors next week." "I need you with me on this, Jake," Anna said, her voice steady but her heart pounding. She wasn't going to let this slip through her fingers, not when she had come this far. The silence stretched between them, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Finally, Jake leaned in, his eyes locking onto hers. "All right, I'm in, but you're going to have to promise me one thing." "Anything," Anna said, her breath catching, "that when it all goes sideways, we'll have a damn good time along the way." He grinned, and for a moment, the tension in the air lifted. And just like that, Anna knew they were in this together. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon as Lily Adams, a 28-year-old marketing specialist from the small town of Cedar Ridge, sat on the porch of her charming bungalow, sipping iced tea. The warm breeze carried a faint scent of pine and fresh-cut grass, and the sound of crickets filled the air, adding to serenity of the evening. But beneath the calm, Lily's mind was racing. She had just received a phone call that would change everything. Her phone buzzed again, and Lily sighed, glancing at the screen. It was Marcus, her old college roommate and now business partner, calling to check in. She hit answer and leaned back in her chair. "Hey, Marcus. What's up?" "Lily, we've got a problem." Marcus's voice crackled through the speaker, and she could already hear the tension. "The investors are backing out. They think the idea for the eco-friendly fashion line is too niche, too risky." Lily's stomach dropped. Just 2 weeks ago, everything had been falling into place. Their designs were finally ready, the marketing strategy was sharp, and they had even secured a small grant to kick things off. But now, it all seemed like it was slipping through her fingers. "I don't get it," Lily muttered, her voice tight. "We've got everything. sustainable fabrics, unique designs, and an entire community ready to back us up. Why are they backing out now? Marcus sighed on the other end. They want numbers, Lily. They want to see immediate returns. They don't care about long-term impact. I don't know what to tell you. We might have to go back to the drawing board. Lily's mind was already turning, calculating her next move. She had built this dream from the ground up, and she wasn't going to let a few setbacks derail her. She could almost see the vibrant line of clothing, ethically produced, sustainably sourced, hanging in a boutique window, catching the eye of every passerby. This was her chance to make a mark, not just for herself, but for the planet. Taking a deep breath, she stood up, her eyes scanning the horizon as if the answer might appear there. "No," she said firmly, her voice now brimming with determination. "I'm not giving up. We're going to find another way. Marcus, there's always another way." A pause lingered before Marcus spoke again, sounding a bit more hopeful. "You always were the stubborn one. And you love me for it." She shot back with a grin, her spirits lifting. Despite the uncertainty, Lily felt a spark of excitement flare within her. She wasn't backing down now. The world wasn't ready for her eco-fashion revolution, but it soon would be. The small town of Willow Creek was quiet, as usual, when Sarah Montgomery, a 35-year-old schoolteacher, slipped out of her modest brick house and into her rusty old truck. It was a Wednesday afternoon, the kind of day where the sun hung lazily in the sky, casting long shadows across the sleepy streets. Sarah had never minded the slow pace of Willow Creek, but today felt different, almost like she was standing on the edge of something big. Or maybe, she mused as she pulled out of her driveway, it was just the excitement of her new side hustle. She had always loved the idea of home decor, but never had the courage to take the leap. That is, until she stumbled upon an old, dust-covered chair at a yard sale. It had potential. Sarah could see it clearly in her mind. With a little sandpaper, some paint, and a dash of creativity, she could turn that worn-out piece of furniture into a stunning, modern accent chair. And that was how it all began. Now, as she drove toward a local hardware store, she couldn't help but smile. What started as a small project to fill her free time had morphed into something more. She had listed her first few upcycled pieces online, and to her surprise, they had sold within days. Word had spread, and before she knew it, Sarah was getting custom orders. The unexpected thrill of turning forgotten furniture into something beautiful had ignited a fire in her. Pulling into the parking lot, Sarah saw a familiar face. It was her best friend, Jenna, who was unloading a cart full of power tools. "Hey there," Jenna called, waving enthusiastically. "Heard you gone full DIY. I'm impressed." Sarah grinned, feeling a bit of pride. "You could say that. I'm just getting started." As they entered the store together, Sarah couldn't help but feel a wave of excitement wash over her. What began as a simple act of creativity had turned into a real business opportunity. And just like that, Willow Creek no longer felt like just a small town. It felt like the starting point of something big. In the heart of Charleston, South Carolina, lived Marcus Reynolds, a 40-year-old businessman with sharp mind and a stubborn streak. Marcus had always been the type to work hard, climb the corporate ladder, and do everything by the book. But something had changed in the last few months. A quiet frustration had been building inside him. The endless grind of the 9 to 5, the endless meetings, the long hours. It all felt like a never-ending cycle that was slowly draining him. One evening, after another exhausting day at his office in the towering glass building downtown, Marcus sat in his apartment, staring at his phone. He had just finished reading another article on the power of passive income and the opportunities that lay outside the corporate world. He thought about the countless hours he had spent building his career, the years of sacrifice, but none of it seemed as fulfilling as what he'd been reading about. What if I could do something different? Marcus thought, half to himself. He had always loved woodworking, a hobby he'd inherited from his father. The thought of turning that passion into a business had crossed his mind before, but he'd always dismissed it as a fantasy. However, that night, the idea stuck. He spent the next few hours researching, scouring the internet for tips on starting a woodworking business from home. The next morning, Marcus found himself at a local lumber yard, picking out his first set of tools. He grinned, the excitement bubbling inside him. He wasn't sure where this new journey would take him, but he knew it was time for a change. As he loaded up the wood, he couldn't help but laugh to himself. Marcus Reynolds, the corporate guy, now becoming a craftsman. It felt absurd, yet somehow liberating. Little did he know, this spontaneous decision would lead him into a new world where creativity and independence awaited, far beyond the cubicles and conference calls of his former life. In the vibrant streets of New Orleans, 32-year-old Jessica Dawson had spent most of her life working in the bustling world of digital marketing. By day, she worked tirelessly at a renowned advertising firm, handling the social media campaigns for major clients. By night, she would retreat to her small apartment in the French Quarter, scrolling endlessly through her phone or catching up on her favorite true crime podcasts. The routine was safe, predictable, but something in her gut told her it wasn't enough. It all started when she went to an old family reunion in Baton Rouge. Her aunt, a quirky woman with a deep love for gardening, had been growing and selling unique herbal teas for years. "You should try this one, Jess," Aunt Claire said one afternoon as they sat under the sprawling oak tree in her backyard. "It's called Healing Mint. It does wonders for stress." Jessica took a sip, and something strange happened. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a sudden calmness, as if the weight of the world had been lifted off her shoulders. It was nothing like the artificial relief she got from her daily cup of coffee. This was real, natural, and grounding. That moment, sipping mint tea in the warm Louisiana sun, sparked an idea that would soon change everything. Back in New Orleans, Jessica started experimenting with her own blend of herbal teas, combining her love for creativity and the calming effects of nature's remedies. She launched a small online shop, hoping it would be a fun side project. Little did she know, the website exploded within a few weeks, and orders began pouring in from all over the country. Her new venture soon became more than just a hobby. With each tea blend she crafted, Jessica found herself reconnecting with her roots, both as a businesswoman and a person. And slowly, her passion for digital marketing began to merge with her newfound love for holistic wellness. She realized that taking the risk to follow her heart, with a little twist of adventure, might just be the best decision she'd ever made. In the heart of Denver, Colorado, 27-year-old Michael Mike Carter had always been a go-getter. Born and raised in the city, he'd worked his way up from a part-time cashier at a local tech store to becoming the regional sales manager at a booming startup. The glass skyscrapers in downtown were his playground, and his days were filled with board meetings, client calls, and high-energy pitch sessions. But despite his rapid career success, Mike felt a creeping emptiness inside, like he was constantly running on a treadmill that never stopped. It wasn't until his best friend, Jake, invited him for a weekend trip up to the Rockies that Mike realized how much he'd been neglecting his own well-being. Jake, who had always been more laid back, had quit his corporate job a year prior to pursue his passion for rock climbing and photography. The contrast between the two of them was striking. Jake, with his free spirit and connection to nature, seemed so at peace with his life. Mike, on the other hand, couldn't remember the last time he took a real break. One morning, as they climbed a challenging route near Boulder, Mike found himself struggling. His body was sore and his breath was short. But Jake's calm encouragement helped him push through. When they finally reached the summit, Mike sat down, panting but in awe of the view before him. The valley stretched endlessly below, the sun painting the sky in warm hues of orange and pink. "Sometimes you need to stop running," Jake said, sitting beside him. "Life's not about how fast you go, but how much you enjoy the journey." It was in that moment, high above the world, that Mike realized he'd been so focused on the climb to success that he'd forgotten to appreciate the beauty of the journey itself. The lesson was clear. True success wasn't just about achievements, but finding balance, peace, and fulfillment along the way. As they descended back into the valley, Mike made a vow to incorporate more moments of stillness into his busy life, and he knew that would make all the difference. At 34 years old, Jessica Jess Miller was living in Nashville, Tennessee, a city known for its vibrant music scene and southern charm. Jess had always been a creative soul, pouring her heart into songwriting and playing small gigs at local venues. However, despite her love for music, Jess had always struggled to get noticed. She'd spent years working odd jobs to support her dream, but she never seemed to catch a break. One chilly autumn evening, as she was playing at a cozy coffee house on the outskirts of the city, she met Ethan, a seasoned music producer from Los Angeles. He had been in Nashville scouting new talent and happened to stumble upon Jess's set. Impressed by her raw talent, he approached her after the show. "You got something special," Ethan said, sipping his iced coffee. "But you're holding back. You need to take more risks. Put yourself out there even more. Let your music reflect who you truly are, not just what you think people want to hear." Jess was stunned. She had always tried to fit into the mold of what she thought would make her successful, writing catchy hooks, playing it safe. But Ethan's words resonated with her in a way that nothing had before. Over the next few months, Jess pushed herself to break free from the confines she had placed on her music. She began writing with more vulnerability, incorporating personal stories into her lyrics. Her performances became more authentic, and she started to gain a following. She no longer feared rejection. Instead, she embraced the process of growth. The lesson Jess learned was profound. Success wasn't about playing it safe or following trends. It was about being true to herself and daring to be different. By taking risks, she found not just success in her career, but fulfillment in her craft. Her music, once restrained, now had the freedom to soar, just like her dreams.